understand that counsel for the matters of this particular hearing has conflict?
No, Your Honor, I represent Ms. Pettiway. I have a potential conflict
On the rest of,
on the rest. Yes, sir, I have no conflict for this.
You swear affirm testimony you about to give before this court today, the truth, nothing but the truth,
I do.
I know I was doing wrong. Tell me why you chose.
Ms. Pettiway was charged based on her statement that she gave us on the morning of July 5th. In her statement, she advised that she drove her Chevy Tahoe containing Andre Bonner and the man that she referred to as T, who we later determined to be John Hollingshed. She drove them away from the Zodiac and to the hospital. Andre Bonner was charged with the murder of Jamani Bland, and John Hollingshed was charged with the criminal attempt to commit murder of Deon Davis. Her actions making her party to the crime.
Right.
In the warrant, your only allegation was that she was the getaway driver, correct?
Correct.
And you've charged her as a party to the crime of murder, attempted murder, and criminal street gang activity, correct?
Correct.
Both Mr. Bonner and Mr. Hollingshed have been shot in the incident, is that correct?
Mr. Bonner was shot in the incident. Mr. Hollingshed was not.
Okay. And Ms. Pettiway took them to the hospital, correct?
She delivered Mr. Bonner to the hospital, correct?
Okay. There was a fight that occurred at the Zodiac Lounge prior to the shooting, correct?
Yes.
And Ms. Pettiway was not involved in that fight, correct?
She was not a participant in the actual physical altercation, no.
Did she encourage, to your knowledge, anybody to engage in that fight?
No, not to my knowledge.
Let's talk about the shooting. Ms. Pettiway didn't shoot anybody.
Correct.
She didn't encourage anybody to shoot anybody.
Not that I'm aware of.
She didn't have a gun.
No.
Didn't give a gun to any of the shooters.
Correct.
She didn't know that the shooting was taking place as far as you know. Is that correct?
I can't speak to that.
Okay. Ms. Pettiway's car was shot during this incident. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any evidence that Ms. Pettiway was involved at any point other than driving Mr. Bonner to the hospital?
Driving him to the hospital, at this point, that is correct.
Okay. Judge, the law on this is clear. I'm going to hand you a copy of Ratana v. State. It's a Court of Appeals case from 2009 with facts very similar to this case. And it states, and I quote, "Driving a criminal perpetrator away from a crime scene with knowledge that he has committed the crime does not, in and of itself, render one guilty as a party to the crime. Such an offender is not considered a party to the crime under the party to a crime statute." In this case, the only evidence that we've got is that Ms. Pettiway, after the shooting took place, drove an injured person to the hospital. She did not encourage the shooting, she did not participate in the shooting, and therefore these warrants against her charging her with murder, attempted murder, and the criminal street gang activity should be dismissed for lack of probable cause.
And Judge, if I may interject, also according to her statement, she was not aware that Bonner had been shot until after he was already in the vehicle and they were underway.
Judge, what knowledge happened after the shooting is irrelevant. What matters is what involvement Ms. Pettiway had prior to the shooting. And there's been no evidence that she participated in any way in the shooting itself.
Well, they're obviously part of criminal gangs. And criminal gangs, even when they're not there, up under the law, have been held guilty of other criminal activity by gang members because of their affiliation with each other. So therefore, I will let you argue this case up, and I'm going to bound it over to the Superior